Welcome time travelers, and welcome new time travelers. As always, if you're new to this channel and enjoy learning about history one event at a time, then don't forget to hit that like button, comment, and subscribe. Without further ado, let's get into it. Today we're going to start out in 193 when Sempitus was declared Emperor of Rome by his troops, and he went on to found a personal dynasty and convert the government into a military monarchy. In 1471, the disposed and exiled King of England, Edward IV, defeated King Henry VI's forces at the Battle of Barnet near London, enabling him to retake the throne. In 1828, Noah Webster published an American dictionary of the English language. It was based on the principle that the word usage should evolve from the spoken language. The work was hugely influential, though it was initially attacked for its un-Americanism. On this day in 1865, just after the effective end of the American Civil War, U.S. President Abraham Lincoln was shot by John Wilkes Booth while attending a production at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C., and passed the next morning. 1866 is when Anne Sullivan Macy, Helen Keller's teacher, was born near Springfield, Massachusetts. In 1902, American businessman J.C. Penney opened his first dry goods store in Khmer, Wyoming. 2 years later, in 1904, John Gielgud, an English actor, producer, and director, considered one of the greatest performers of his generation on stage and screen, particularly as a Shakespearean actor, was born. 20 years later, in 1924, American architect Louis Sullivan, the father of modern American architecture, passed in Chicago. Our next stop will be in 1939 when American author John Steinbeck's classic The Grapes of Wrath, which was set during the Great Depression and traces of the migration of an Oklahoma Dust Bowl family to California and their subsequent hardship as migrant farm workers, was published. Now, in 1941, brought us two events. The first is when American professional baseball player Pete Ross, known as an all-around ability and enthusiasm, was born in Scituate, Ohio. The second event is when British troops retired to the new defense line in Greece near Mount Olympus. German High Command said Yugoslav army was virtually destroyed. 1951 is when Lieutenant General James A. Van Fleet assumed command of the U.S. 8th Army in Korea. The following year, in 1952, American author Ralph Ellison published his debut novel, Invisible Man, Bilderberg's roman that tells of a native and idealistic young black man, was widely regarded as a classic. 1969 is when President Richard M. Nixon outlawed 10 domestic programs he intended to submit to Congress. 1986 brought us a force of U.S. warplanes based in Britain bombed several sites in Libya, killing or wounding several of Muammar al-Qaddafi's children and narrowly missing Qaddafi himself. 3 years after the turn of the century, in 2003, researchers announced the end of the Human Genome Project. Over the course of 13 years, they had successfully determined, stored, and rendered publicly available the subsequences of almost all the genetic content of human genome. 2003 also brought us Bartholomew the First, accumulating patriarch of the Eastern Orthodox Church, formally accepted the apology offered by Pope John Paul II in 2001 for the sacking of Constantinople, which is now Istanbul, by Crusader armies in the early 13th century. On this day in 2010, a volcano in Iceland, I'm not even gonna try and pronounce it, began sending ash plumes into the skies, disturbing air traffic for days across northern and central Europe. 4 years later, in 2014, the Islamic sectarian movement, Boko Haram, kidnapped more than 275 girls from a boarding school in Chibok, Nigeria, sparking worldwide condemnation. 3 years ago, in 2021, American hedge fund investment manager Bernie Madoff, who operated the world's largest Ponzi scheme, passed in federal prison at the age of 82. And with that, we return to 2024 and our current history. Until next time.